Welcome to the Grip. I'm coming at you today live from the pro shop of my golf course. Because it's a little rainy, it's a little slow. I want to get an episode up just at the beginning of the US Open, and then I'll drop one on the channel on the backside of the US Open. So there's not a lot of movement in the world of business drama for Live Golf, but there are some things we're going to talk about. But I think what's most interesting to talk about is there's 13 Live players competing in the US Open this weekend. They weren't supposed to be good enough to qualify or compete at the majors, right? That's the story. But we're going to talk about some of the guys, young guys, that have qualified on their own merits for the US Open. And Shinnecock, it's like playing golf on the British Isles. It's like playing golf at St. Andrews. You got the high fescue. You've got the battering wind coming off. You got the warm salt air, and that breeze is going to dry out the course. Players are already complaining. The USGA has already sent out an announcement that they're going to be watering the greens. Only they didn't say they're going to be watering the greens. They said they're going to syringe the greens, which means they're going to be spraying the greens with water. For some reason, they just don't want to say watering the greens. Anyways, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking for a good weekend of carnage for some of the best golfers in the world. And the Live guys got 13 players in the US Open. Now, we've had players in the Masters from Live and in the PGA Championship, but not like the best players, just guys that qualified through historic merits. But this contingent of Live golfers all qualified on their own merits, right? Except for DJ, this is his last exemption. But right now they're on the course. I got the computer up. Let's see who we got. Let's see who's going on. Top of the leaderboard. Even par through two is Caleb Surratt. This is his first major. Remember, this guy was only a sophomore when he was recruited by John Rahm to come play on Legion 13. So Caleb Surratt took down some of the best golfers in the world in a qualifying tournament in Texas. He won a 6-1 playoff, the young guy to get into the Open. So this is his first major. He qualified himself. John Rahm was asked, the expectations, and basically said he's going to have to get some experience because, the pressure plus the conditions of Shinnecock. But, Caleb Surratt, hope he makes the weekend. I don't see him running away with it or even finishing top 10 because he hasn't shown he can close the deal yet. And then you add in the pressure of the majors. Who else we got? We got Peter Uihlein and Graham McDowell qualified at the same section event that Caleb Surratt won to qualify. So Graham McDowell, this is his first major since joining Live. So here's a guy that people have written off that, he's not good enough to play. And he went out, put the bag on his own back, and qualified for the US Open. So he's Graham McDowell, man. He's no slouch in majors. Let's see how he does. He's used to these conditions, right? This is an Irish guy. He's grown up playing high fescue, rolling hills, no trees, and greens that will pound you to death if you can't get a handle on them. And Peter Uihlein, he started off the season on Live really good. He was like just balling out, but he hasn't been playing good lately. I don't know what shape his game is coming into the Open. Let's see what happens. If he makes the cut, that will be a huge deal. Who else do we got on Live? Let me just pull it up on the computer here. I was just looking at the leaderboard. Laurie Cantor. So Laurie Cantor, another guy that shows proof of concept that Live guys are ballers. He qualified for the US Open because he was in the order of merit, one of the leaders last year on the DP World Tour. And if you remember Laurie Cantor last year, because of that status on the DP World Tour, he earned his PGA card. He turned it down to go back to Live, where he was there from the beginning, but he got relegated because he wasn't playing good enough. So he worked on his game. He had the opportunity to go to Live or the PGA, and he chose to go to Live. Lucas Herbert, listen, Ripper GC got him in my heart. This guy, he plays so good, but then he can play so bad. I have no idea how he's going to perform at Shinnecock, and nobody else has any idea either. But it's good to see him in there. This is great experience for him. He plays well in off-Live events, in Australian events. He played well in New Zealand. I know we're going to see what happens to Lucas at Shinnecock. What else we got? Terrell Hatton. Terrell Hatton was in the top 5 of the US Open last year, I think, right? It was him and Carlos Ortiz were balling out when JJ Spawn won. Hatton he's coming off a victory on Live. He had a baby, then one live, and now he's at the US Open, a father less than a few weeks, several weeks old, with a child that's only several weeks old at home. Tyrrell Hatton's a guy I think will make the weekend and compete. I see a top 25 from Tyrrell Hatton. I don't know if I see him winning, but he can close the deal. He just doesn't seem to do it in the majors, but he can hang on in the tough conditions. And we're live from the pro shop here, so I've got to do pro shop things. I hope you enjoy. Pomperaugh Golf Club.
Hi, do you have any tea times tomorrow around 9
For how many players?
or 2?
Okay.
Might have to be paired up with the other 2.
Well, that time of the day you have to, unfortunately. So 9 o'clock, we are completely full all the way until 11 o'clock. So we actually don't have tea times tomorrow until 11 or
Okay, thank you.
yep, you got it. Bye. Big Friday here at the Pomp. I'm looking at the tee sheet. So let's get back to Terrell Hatton. So I'm sorry, the phone's gonna ring. Um, when I first did this podcast, I was actually going to call it live from the pro shop. And I was going to talk to players as they came in about golf current events, and do all the stuff that happens here in a clubhouse. I didn't. I went the other way. And obviously, I started talking about LIV, the truth about LIV, looking into the stuff nobody else does. They just, speak to each other with negative golf media headlines. All right. So we got Tyrrell Hatton, Lucas Herbert, DJ. This is his last year he qualifies to play in the US Open. So let's see if he can make the best of it. He's going to need a good finish. I think top 5, right? So he can get in next year. DJ's having a great season, and he's playing well in the majors. He's top 25 at Augusta, and then he was top 20 at the PGA Championship. So he's coming in as a guy that can go out and fire a 63, but then the next day he can go out and shoot a 78. I'm a huge DJ fan. He was one of my favorite players over the last couple decades. I would love to see Dustin Johnson make a good showing at the Open. We talked about Graham McDowell, Waco Niemann. Here we go. Everybody loves to give Waco a hard time. Oh, he doesn't perform well in the majors. He qualified because he's the top ranked LIV player that's not otherwise exempt in the majors. He bumped out Thomas Dietrich and Anthony Kim. AK, man, he could have been at this US Open. He just, after that win in Adelaide, he just didn't do it. But he'll get there. Waco, he did the work. He qualified. He's also done really well at most of the majors he's played in. He's got a lot of top 25s, top 20s. He's has more top 25s in majors than most of the PGA roster of like 400 guys with a PGA Tour card. So they love to give him a hard time because, he doesn't show up in majors. He's top 25 in like a handful of the majors he's played in. Now he hasn't won, and he's not a top 10 guy, but Waco's playing hot. He just won on LIV again. He wants to make a showing. I'm not sure he can control the ball enough off the tee to do well at Shinnecock, but who doesn't love Waco Niemann? I mean, he's just a great kid. He's 25 years old, right? I think so. He's 25, and he's already done amazing things in the PGA, amazing things for South America, and amazing things on LIV. So I hope that his advantage is, though, he hits a driver that goes 10 yards off the ground. You don't see a lot of players play like that. It is a stinger driver designed after Tiger Woods' old 2-iron. And if he can control that, and he can go tee to green as long as he nails some putts, that's what's going to take for everybody at Shinnecock. You got to go tee to green. There's no question. You got to deal with the elements. You got to deal with the wind. But then when you get on these greens and they're running at a 9 on the stint, you've got to make long putts. And some guys thrive in that situation. Jon Rahm, what we'll talk about in a minute, he's one of those guys. Rory McIlroy, obviously, Matt Fitzpatrick, Scotty Scheffler, the big names. The reason the big guys always find their way to the top to courses like Shinnecock is because they can putt these greens. And putting these greens is everything. Everybody can hit a ball 350. That's not a commodity anymore in the PGA. So Waco's got that low drive. If he can control it, keep it in play, get on the greens, hit some putts, we can see a top 25 from Waco. I don't know if I see him top 10. I just don't know. I haven't seen him crawl his way that high up yet. Carlos Ortiz, well, he's in the US Open because he was threatening to win it last year. And boy, that would have pissed off a lot of PGA fans. And of course, JJ Spawn won. But Carlos Ortiz gets in on his own merits because he finished top 5 with Terrell Hatton last year at the US Open. David Pooch, how did he get in? He's in the top 60 in OWGR points in the world. So now that Live Golf actually gets points and he plays in DP World Tour events and Asian Tour events, he's accumulated enough points to be in the top 60 so he can walk right through the door as a professional golfer that qualified through the bogus world ranking system. All right, let's talk about the big guns. Bryson hasn't made the cut in a major yet this year. And he's not like, I know he's upset about it, but he's even joking about it. He's like, hey, I might not make a cut at any major. And that's not going to define him. It might for the media, so they have something to talk about. Negativity drives algorithm. But Bryson, it's that approach shot that kills Bryson because we know the guy can putt. He's a big time putter and we know he can crush the drive, but everybody can crush the drive. What happens to Bryson is when you get to like 130 to 180 yards out and you got to spin down an iron coming in and you can't even put a lot of spin on the balls coming in Shinnecock. You're going to roll that right off the green. So you got to be able to land soft, send in those butterfly with swollen feet kind of golf balls to the Shinnecock greens, and you got to contend with the wind. So if you're not consistent with your approach shot, and now you got to calculate the wind as a factor, a lot of hurt sometimes help. I don't know if Bryson can be in control with his short to mid irons. Of course he can contend. He's one of the greatest golfers in the world. And he's one of the greatest golfers in the world because he scrambles because he can't control his short to mid irons. So if his approach game is in check, we're going to see Bryson on the leaderboard on Sunday. We'll definitely see him up there in the top 10. But Thursday, Friday, if he's not getting those approach shots down, if you see him missing greens in regulation, then Bryson won't be around again for the weekend. Doesn't matter how far he hits the ball. Jon Rahm, he might win, right? I mean, you can never rule out Jon Rahm. He's Rory McIlroy. He's Scotty Scheffler. He's better than Xander Schauffele. I don't think there's too many golfers in the world more consistent and better than Jon Rahm. And he is a guy that can control his approach shots. He can put a lot of spin on it. He can take the spin off. He could come in at different angles. He could keep the ball low. And what his advantage at Shinnecock is he has such a flat, quick backswing that he might be able to control the ball in these, like, when the gusts are blowing 30, 40 miles an hour, he might be able to do some stuff to surprise everybody. I could see Rahm in the top 10. I could see Rahm winning. Cam Smith is balling out this season. He's back to hitting those putts. He's back to being a master of the short game. He's got his driver in control. And that was the difference of Cam Smith the last couple of years. He lost control of his driver, but he's back. He's got the driver in control. And if he could putt like he puts, like he did to win the Open a few years ago, Cam Smith's going to be a guy on the front page of the leaderboard on Sunday. Can he close the deal? I don't know. He hasn't done that in a little bit, but he's certainly in the running. The last few tournaments he's been in, and he grew up in Australia playing the Sandbelt, which is very similar to how they hold the Shinnecock greens, how you run those approach shots into these windy, flat, spinny greens. So I think that's it for the LIV contingent. Of course, Phil Mickelson qualifies, but Phil got in trouble. Apparently, he did something sexual to a young woman at his country club, which he resigned from. Now, Phil went and hired a defamation attorney because of the media report about it. The woman's not talking. The club and the members aren't talking. So the one thing you and I know is nothing, and no one does. And that story came up and kind of went away. I don't know if it's a money grab. Hopefully he wasn't sexually harassing some young woman. Well, maybe he was, but you don't hire a defamation attorney and resign from the club on your own merits if, like, you actually did something. But you know what? Phil and Tiger, those are two troubled humans. Phil had a gambling problem. Phil has impulse control issues with his Twitter and his political views and his thoughts. But Phil single-handedly changed the game of golf for everyone for the better. He really did. Whether you hate LIV or not, Phil had did the things the players have been asking for years. More money and more control over their schedule. Now that they got it, Rory McIlroy is saying, "Hey, we're not sure if we want that." All of a sudden, he's out in the press conferences shooting down the fundamental outline of track 2 PGA Tour events when that's what he wanted, and now it's happening. He's like, "Oh, that's not going to work out." So I don't know. Phil created this opportunity for everybody. He's one of the most hated men in golf, but so is Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was a drug addict. Tiger Woods put the public in danger, and Tiger Woods was dishonest, not loyal, shitty to his family and his wife, lied to the public. And Phil, perhaps he harassed a young woman. I'm a father of two daughters. I hope that he didn't do it, but we weren't going to see him at the US Open anyways. And there is no relationship to Phil not being around and this alleged incident that happened at his San Diego country club. So that's the US Open. I'm excited. Well, I've been doing this for 20 minutes or so. Let's see what happened on the leaderboard, right? We're live here, and Caleb Surratt still at the top after 2 holes played at Shinnecock. I don't think that's going to last long. All right, business news. Liv, we came on, we talked about all the bullshit headlines. By this time, Liv was supposed to have lost half their players and all their staff because they were supposed to exit to the door after Mexico, and nobody's left. In fact, every single player, including Jon Rahm, is all in on supporting Liv in the future. And Scott O'Neill and Bryson are out there pitching Liv. Now, Scott talked about all these meetings he's had, he's been going to, but he's also had a few of those, like almost a dozen at this point, that have signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. And that means they're not just people plate licking, looking for a free lunch. These were people that are generally interested in the business side of it, or else they wouldn't sign an NDA. They'd want to talk about their experience learning about Liv, and they make more money in an interview. So the people that sign an NDA are serious. We're almost at a dozen that we know publicly. And we also know that in Australia, Cam Smith, according to an article there, has been introducing wealthy investors to Scott O'Neill. So it might be a culmination of investors around the world, from Australia, which makes sense, to South Africa, to Europe, to America, maybe a holding company with, a lot of interest, like we talked last week, looking like TGL, where a bunch of people just buy in for fun, buy in for write-offs, or buy in because they believe in team golf. But there has been no drama on the Liv front since we last spoke. Just the same bullshit. Liv's going away, Liv's going away, and Liv hasn't gone away. They're going to get an investor. The headlines were they weren't even going to finish the season. When I dropped the last episode that day, a report came out that the PIF filed paperwork and they funded June payments of $130 million to Liv. That means they paid what they agreed to pay. And that's what Scott O'Neill says. They have showed no signs of not finishing the 2026 season, or they haven't shown any signs of not helping Liv secure a new investor. So the PIF funding $130 million. We know the events in London aren't canceled, like the rumors were. They're already setting up TV towers and the operational structures for the Liv tournament in London in about a month away, or in the UK about a month away. And I'm looking forward to going to Bedminster. I'm working on trying to get in the press room so I can ask some questions. I don't think it's going to happen, but I will be on site, and I will be poking around, talking to the people I know in the know down with the Liv organization. But that's it. Nothing crazy happening. I want to come back on Sunday, maybe Monday. Let's talk about how all the Liv guys did in the US Open, and let's see how the media reacts to however they did, right? Do they say, oh, these guys can't play anymore? Or do the Liv guys do well? And I think they will, because out of the 13 guys in the US Open, 10 of them are some of the best players on Liv. It's not like the Masters old timers qualifying or the PGA past winners qualifiers. These are guys that qualified on their own merits. Waco, Ortiz, Puig, and Cam Smith's in there for an exemption, and he's playing real well. Terrell Hatton. It's going to be a good performance, I believe, for Liv at the US Open. I think a lot of these guys not only are going to make the cut, they're going to make a run in the top 20, some in the top 10, and who knows, maybe somebody of this group's going to win the US Open. We'll definitely see Rahm around on a Sunday. I personally would love to see Bryson. I'd love to see Waco, but I actually mostly would love to see Cam Smith pop his head back up and show that he's a threat in the majors. All right, we'll catch you soon on The Grip.